My name is Ari Salomon, and today I'll be discussing design guidelines for mobile websites and getting you to understand, really why you need mobile websites and why you don't just have to stick to one specific website like a desktop website. So, a quick summary, we're going to go over why we create separate mobile websites, a website versus an app for a mobile phone, techniques to building a mobile website, coding changes that need to be done for mobile, the navigation menu, which is a very important piece of any website, finger-friendly design, mobile design methodology, the overall process from a business point of view, and how we offer cross-channel consistency and overall integration with mobile websites. So let's get started. So why do we even need a mobile website? Why can't we just stick with our typical desktop website? Well, when we look at our mobile phones, there's limited real estate. Real estate means the area that the screen is, nothing more, nothing less. It's a metaphor. So users must really pick and choose what smaller set of features and options to put on that home screen, that home real estate that's very important and very, very valuable. Regular desktop websites are too spread out for a typical mobile phone. You need to make it much smaller, and a completely different model must be taken into account. So really, when you get down to it, multiple mobile websites should be made for feature phones like flip phones with internet, smartphones like your Androids and your iPhone, as well as tablets should all have a separate user experience that'll go along with the actual real estate you have in place. So mobile sites should be completely user-centered. They should not be business-oriented. You really need to think about the user, because if a user comes to a mobile website that's not easy to use, they won't use it whatsoever. They'll go on to the next thing, go to an app, or just continue on with their day. So development for mobile user experience really needs to think about their target audience. If you have for example, if you have elderly, you really need to make sure that everything is extremely large and it's very limited what you have on there. You also really need to take into account user feedback when you're considering the process. So here's a quick little comparison between CNN. You can see how much information you have on your desktop website as opposed to the mobile website. You really need to pick and choose. While they are covering the same two stories, you really need to pick and choose exactly what you're going to show. So, why a mobile website, not an app? You always hear there's an app for that. That was Apple's first campaign with their iPhone. But there's an app for that. Apps are great, but mobile websites are actually just as important, if not more important. For example, the immediacy of a mobile website is right there. You just need to type in the web address, and it's completely right there. With an app, you have to download it, and you have to go through the entire process. Compatibility. Mobile websites are compatible across any type of device. A single mobile website can just reach users across many different types of mobile devices, where native apps require a separate version to be developed for each type. And that's really important, and you'll see that. Upgradability. Mobile websites don't need to be upgraded. They upgrade instantly. If you want to change the design or content of a mobile website, you simply push the edit button once and the changes become visible. There's a broader reach because of how compatible it is. Mobile websites do have a broader reach, and because a mobile website is accessible across any platform, it can be easily shared among users. The load time is much faster than any app for the most part, and you can get it instantly. And really, when you boil it down, the most important piece from a business point of view is the time and cost. It's just less expensive. And really, the support and sustainability, once you keep going with that mobile website, you need to make updates. It just updates like that. I mean, you just have to change the HTML, CSS, and some of the mobile jQuery. And it's also really important to note that a mobile website can be an app. There's actually nothing that the eBay, for example, app can do that their mobile website can't do. And it only takes about half the time because it just uses simple HTML, really simple graphics. So building a mobile website, your real estate is less, so styling must be smaller. Styling sheets, CSS as it's called, must call for single column layouts for the most part. There are exceptions to this rule, but the general idea is you want to keep it to a single column layout. Reduction of the bandwidth, the file size, is an issue with 3G and even 4G networks, so it must be efficient. Code must be small. Icon view for a site is it's pretty necessary to go linear, or maybe a sliding column, and I'll show you examples of that And scrolling in one direction, usually vertically, although it can be both. There are no set rules, but you usually just want to scroll in one direction to keep things consistent, keep things simple. The most important thing at the very beginning of any solid mobile website is that it detects what mobile browser you're using and what mobile device you're using. And based on that, it will actually give you different websites or a slightly different layout. So, and lastly, really you need to use short descriptive titles because you're on such small real estate. You need to get everything in and you need to capture the user's attention with 3-word titles. So here are some different examples. Right here you have the Facebook website. It's actually 2 columns but slides. So here's one column with your set of options and your navigation. When you click this right here, this slides right over, comes right back to a single column layout. Here's your typical linear column layout. And usually every website will go to this linear column layout eventually, but it may start with a set of icons, kind of like your home screen on your actual smartphone. So really here are the 3 types of home real estates, and from this there's not a ton of variation without violating any principles. Mobile development is important. Design leads to development. So just as your design will change on a mobile website, the development will change as well. Complex plugins can't happen, and that's because you just don't have the power in your phone to deal with that like you do on these amazing computers that we have. They need to be much smaller. Input types, and they must be specified. When you have an input type, a different keyboard will come up, whether that's a telephone number, so a number-based keyboard will come up, or if you're typing in an email address, there's definitely a different keyboard on the iPhone for that puts the @ sign right there. Device orientation can have different style sheets, different styles. Never flash, although some phones do support it, you never really want to have it. No complex image carousels, no modals, no heavy animation, and really to minimalize the product, you really don't want to have too much external CSS JavaScript, large images, font loading from Google Font API, or really any other code. So limit the code really helps to simple JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and jQuery Mobile, which is a condensed version of the jQuery library. So navigation layout. The navigation menu is the most important part of the website in terms of going past the home page. So you really want to use a responsive menu design, which means different design menus for different sizes of screens that will adjust automatically. Visual design is important. Typically, design menus should be centered and not floated. And that's just for visual design and keeping everything consistent. You can see the difference right here, which looks better. Centered versus floated. So the navigation layout, from an ergonomic point of view, you need to make sure every piece is tappable, and the areas are larger and look more like buttons. And even if they read like links, they really need to act like buttons and send a very clear signal of where the user needs to tap their finger. And if you need to have more navigation items, linear design is always necessary so people can scroll through, put the most common ones towards the top. And using CSA to display these different menus on different devices is also important. So finger-friendly design. Your fingers are actually a little bit larger. So the suggested size minimum for any size button or anything is 26 pixels squared. So that's not a lot of room. And actually what's recommended is almost twice that at 44 square pixels for any 3.5 screen, which is your typical iPhone. Now the average phone is at 4, which is where the iPhone 5 is, and most Android phones are actually much larger. So the average pixel width of any index finger to keep in mind is 57 pixels, and the thumb is up to 72. So small touch targets lead to big problems. So links should have padding around them if they're on a mobile website. And padding is just the area in between the link and the actual next portion of the website. And it's still touchable. So it needs to have padding around it to actually make the text in the link larger than it may look. So here's the mobile website methodology. You assess the situation. Do I need a mobile website? Why am I going with a mobile website? Then you determine who your users are. This needs to be completely user-centric. If you're designing a website for the elderly, much larger. If you're designing a website for kids, you need to make sure that the buttons are colorful and they're right in front of you. So you need to prioritize those mobile features that we just discussed with the code as well as the design with those mobile considerations, and then a prototype and begin to refine the process. And it's a constant circle. The thing about it is it's much easier to update than your typical app. So cross-channel consistency is also extremely important. You are creating a mobile website because you're looking to reach people on mobile phones. In most cases, there's already a company in place that might have an actual branding, also a desktop website that really needs to stay consistent with same color scheme, needs to be overall consistent user experience for the user. You're going to want to balance form and function. You can't have everything on the mobile site generally that the desktop website can do. At least you can't have it up front. So you really need to figure out exactly what they want to do and make sure those other options are around if they need it. So maintaining continuity, really extending that user experience to each user. The user needs to feel like they are just at a mobile website that is completely in line with what they've seen generally on a desktop. They need to see that logo, they need to see the same color scheme, and they need to see the same style fonts, as well as really the overall same navigation. So consistency is key. You need to be consistent between all the devices. So, in summary, I just wanted to go ahead and say there are a lot of different mobile websites out there, and there isn't one specific way to actually design a mobile website. You really need to keep in mind who the user is and creating that overall user experience. Thank you for your time. Bye.